So let's talk about this discovery of Caiaphas's last testament. Yes, that's right. The man who sent Jesus to his death. Hey guys, it's John out here on the back deck enjoying the bottom part of my cup of coffee. So exciting. There have been a couple of discoveries in Israel that are still contested by many, that scientists have not come to a consensus with whether it's true or not. But I thought I'd like to talk about it because I found the actual findings interesting. We're going to talk about very quickly about two different discoveries. While building a water park in Israel, they unearthed a first century tomb. When they got into the tomb and they started looking, they found all these ossuaries, which is bone boxes of the bodies. And they found one that was entitled Joseph, son of Caiaphas. Now, according to Josephus, the Caiaphas we know from the Bible, his name was Joseph. Caiaphas was his father. But Joseph Caiaphas, who was in the Bible, was the high priest that sent Jeshua to Pilate to be killed. So that was one discovery. Now, they have dated those bones to the first century. The Joseph of Caiaphas's bones, when carbon dated and tested, discovered he was a 50-year-old man who died during the first century. So absolutely could be. There's no direct evidence that tomb is the tomb of that Caiaphas. That's just the one discovery. Now, the other discovery is a little bit more dubious. The reason it's a little bit more dubious is because their origins are not necessarily clear, and that's usually a sign of fraud. But I want to talk about it because the actual document is interesting to me. So supposedly, under some ancient temple, they don't say which one, under some ancient temple in Jerusalem, they found the last testament of Caiaphas. And they claim to have carbon dated it. You can't really find much evidence that they did, but there are some studies that say that this is the last testament of Caiaphas. And when you dive into that last testament of Caiaphas, you find some really interesting things. Like I said, there's not a academic consensus that this is real. You know, there's some people who say they've carbon dated it, and it comes to the first century, and there's some, they haven't come together to agree on it yet. But what I find interesting about the testament of Caiaphas, he does not in any way say Jeshua was the Messiah. Now, a lot of Christian academics are trying to say that that's what he says. He does not in any way say that. What he says in that testament is that he met and had many spiritual conversations with Jeshua, and it was rocking his own faith. It was like, he doesn't say this is the fulfillment of prophecy. He doesn't say this is God on earth. He doesn't say, he said Jeshua's beliefs were making him doubt his own. And he said a lot of the other Jewish high priests were intrigued by him because he was a charismatic figure. And he talked about how that there was becoming this schism within the actual ideologies because Jeshua was saying things that didn't match their teachings, but it was new and exciting, and it was it made them question their faith. So Caiaphas, as the high priest, was like, well, we've got to get rid of this and get us back to what we believed. And he ended up sending him to Pilate to be killed. So Caiaphas went, this is a very political thing. the high priests of Judaism were in essence, the rulers of the area. And they went to the military ruler of the area and said, let's kill this guy because he's going to be a troublemaker. And they killed him. After the death in the Testament of Caiaphas, he says he had a vision of Jeshua, and he's doubted whether he should have done what he did. He had doubts. Now I want to talk about visions, because visions are an interesting thing. When you read the ancient texts, when you read the Bible, when you read any of those texts, you find very quickly that visions are often described as dreams. So he had a dream about Jeshua, and in the dream, it was the risen Jesus. He was alive in his dream. I've had dreams of my dog that were alive. I mean, that's not a something that tells us that he rose from the dead and came to Caiaphas directly. I really think that oftentimes people who've crossed will come over, and although in Jeshua's case, I do think he remanifested his body, but I'm not necessarily sure that Caiaphas's vision was a true vision, or whether it was Caiaphas's own guilt that was manifesting in dream form. But he doesn't say he was that Jeshua was the Messiah. He doesn't say Jeshua was the fulfillment of prophecy. He doesn't say Jeshua was the Son of God. He said that he doubted his own decision making in that process. So the actual testament does not, in any way, shape, or form, it's not a testament of Jeshua. It's his last testament about his life and things he'd done. And when you look at it from the perspective of what he actually says in the thing, he actually does not validate Christianity. He does not in any way, shape, or form validate Christianity. He never says that he is the Messiah. He never says that he is the fulfillment of prophecy. He says he was a really amazing man, charismatic man was the word that they're talking about. And he used to have spiritual conversations with Caiaphas that made him really rethink his own faith. Well, that's what's happening now in our world, is we're kind of rethinking our faith, because the things in Christianity that we all kind of leaned into are showing themselves to be just fearful teachings. And so, absolutely, when someone comes along who's speaking their truth, and their truth makes sense, and you feel that truth within you, it's going to rock your world for your doctrines and your dogmas, because those doctrines and dogmas are not going to be in alignment with what he's teaching. Now, I often talk about Jeshua being the teacher of simplicity, the simple connection to your oneness with God that's always in the present and now. And when you look at it from that perspective, it goes completely against the heavily indoctrinated or doctrines of Judaism, the dogmas, the rituals, the ceremonies of Judaism. Jeshua wasn't teaching any of that. He was teaching our oneness with God. The Father and I are one. You must become one with me as I am with the Father. He was teaching our oneness with God. Greater works than I've done, you will do. It's your faith that heals you. He was teaching us our divinity. And Judaism was teaching waiting for a Messiah who's going to save you. And that's not what Jeshua was teaching, which is why suddenly Caiaphas was having a struggle, because Jeshua was saying things that made sense to him, and he was started to doubt his own faith. If this document is even real. When I read it, that's what I read in it. I see exactly what I just said to you in this document. If it truly is the last testament of Caiaphas, it's a testament to Jeshua himself, saying that this man figured something out, and it made me doubt my faith, is basically what this testament says. And then he had this vision, which was more than likely a dream, of him and his doubts and his fears that he screwed up, showing themselves in the form of a dream. And so when I look at these archaeological discoveries, first of all, I always look at all archaeological discoveries as, show me your documentation, show me your proof, because the majority of the archaeological discoveries that people are talking about nowadays aren't really archaeological discoveries, like the Gospel of the Holy 12 or the the Essene Gospel of Peace. None of them are archaeological discoveries. Those are fabrications made by people trying to prove an agenda. And so when you look at it from the idea of show me your document, show me the document, show me the thing that says you're right, that this is true. Show me the original piece of paper. If they can't show it to you, then you can't take it as a fact. But the story of Caiaphas's last testament rings much more true with my beliefs than Christian beliefs. And that's, in my opinion, just another validation for me. But where that validation comes from, the origins of which I have no idea. But I will say, he it makes much more sense that this charismatic man who was speaking his truth came along, and it made people of different faiths struggle with their own truth. And in struggling with their own truth, they then found themselves having the issue of having to face their truth head on. And then at the end, when he sends him off to Pilate to be killed, he then goes, "What did I do? Oh my God, that guy was speaking the truth." In my first regression, I crossed over. I came back to the beach, dropping back into my fears and my anxieties. But the line that I said, as I watched him walk over the hill away from me, I said, "He gave me a glimpse of everything, and now I have to be with him." I think what Jeshua was doing to Caiaphas and all those other people in the temple was he was giving them glimpses of everything. And they didn't have the big giant experience that John had on that beach, because I don't think John was as indoctrinated into the dogmas as the priests were, of course. So I think that it was, Jeshua met people where they were and brought them to where he was. And I think with John and some of the disciples, that they were, less dogmatic, and so much easier to show the truth to, because they didn't have so many untruths they had to become unmired from. And that's my thought on this. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.